Hello, everyone. I'm Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, we are thrilled, I am thrilled to welcome Chef Melissa King, Top Chef's all-star champion, award-winning chef, television personality, and cookbook author. Melissa is best known as the winner and fan favorite of Top Chef All-Stars Los Angeles. We're going to talk a lot about that today, where she holds the record for the most challenge wins in the history of the show. She's the host of National Geographic's docuseries Tasting Wild, absolutely amazing, and has served as a judge on shows like Top Chef, America's Test Kitchen, and Pamela Anderson's Cooking with Love. Melissa's unique style of cooking combines modern California cuisine with Asian flavors, drawing from her Cantonese heritage and classical training. She graduated at the top of her class from culinary school and is a certified sommelier. Before pursuing culinary arts, she also studied cognitive science at UC Irvine, a fascinating pivot. We'll explore that a little bit later today. She's helmed Michelin-starred kitchens in San Francisco, cooked for figures like Oprah Winfrey, and served as a culinary curator for the 2022 Met Gala. As a proud Asian-American queer woman, Melissa is a powerful advocate for community support. She donated 100% of her Top Chef fan favorite prize to organizations supporting Asian Americans and the LGBTQIA community. In fall of 2025, Melissa released her debut book, Cook Like a King, Recipes from My California Chinese Kitchen, featuring 120 recipes that blend her California sensibility with the Chinese cuisine of her childhood. So get ready for a conversation about breaking records, blending cultures through food, and what it takes to cook like a king. I'm out of breath, but hello, Chef Melissa King. Wow. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm all Melissa all day. Can I tell you right off the bat, my wife adores you, and you're so busy, and I don't expect you to memorize or remember page 152, green beans with pancetta and caramelized soy sauce.
Oh,
my wife's favorite.
I do remember.
My wife's favorite. I just love it.
Thank you.
We celebrate you. We celebrate you all the time. So, wow, what an honor. And, congratulations first on Cook Like a King. Where, if I could set the stage just a little bit, where are you in the world today, and what are you cooking today?
I'm in New York City. I've been spending a good amount of time here, pretty bi-coastal between San Francisco and New York. I just came off of a 2-day pop-up dinner series at a restaurant called Kiko, and we were celebrating the Lunar New Year. So today is the Lunar New Year. So, Happy New Year to you.
Wonderful.
And everybody out there.
Yeah, and happy Mardi Gras and all of that, and
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I have to start with, we got so much to talk about today, and I'm really excited. But we have to start with this beautiful connection. Our chef in residence here at Escoffier is Kristen Kish, who's now hosting Top Chef, and you're a Top Chef All-Star, season 12 in Boston, and season 17. You hold the record for most challenge wins in the show's history. What a special connection point. I would love to just ask, how does it feel to be part of that Top Chef family? And how does it feel to you to see the show continue to evolve? It's just, and we've had many, Hosea is here in Boulder, and doing a great job, season 4, and so on and so forth. It just must be such a proud moment for you.
It's a really special community to be a part of. It feels like this collective of incredibly talented chefs where we can all sort of lean on each other because we've been through this really incredible experience and also stressful experience together. And so, to be able to see everyone's careers sort of take off in different directions, I think is quite powerful to be able to just have this network of people we can trust and rely on and be like, hey, where are you in the world? Let's do a pop-up together, or let's just get in the kitchen. So It's really special
It feels so
what's
genuine
come from
too,
the
and
Top
I
Chef experience. It really is.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I imagine social media just allows you to be there in a moment when you see that something cool occurred, and boom, you're right there to say congrats or how can I help and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think what's beautiful is even if you weren't on the same season of Top Chef competing with each other, you can have access to each other through things like Instagram and social media.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're all friends from different seasons, even if we had not really met in real life. We're all sort of tapped in and connected. And then once we get the opportunity to see each other at a food festival, or maybe I'm in your city and we swing by your restaurant, it feels like we feel like sisters and brothers. It's just very, very deeply connected.
And think about how amazing that is. I wonder if the contestants from Survivor season 1, talks to Survivor season 123, whatever it is now, right? It
Right?
is this
And I
that
think that's
is
the beautiful thing about Top Chef.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're friends with each other, even if you haven't been on it with each other, and because the experience is so niche, and I don't think anyone in the world understands what it feels like to compete on a show like Top Chef, other than each other.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
tend to
And
be very close.
and food's kind of the common denominator there, right? I mean, it brings people together in many
Absolutely,
ways, right? Yeah. I love that.
absolutely.
So I threw a question in that I didn't even run by the producers or or anyone because
Let's
it's
do it.
really it's a good one. It's because I think about this for myself all the time as well, interacting with students as much as we do. When did you realize, chef, that food wasn't just something you loved, but something that would eventually define your life? It's a big question.
I love this question. It's a big one, but I think for me, I was very fortunate to know at a young age what I wanted to do with my life, and it was to cook. I've been cooking since I was 4 or 5 in the kitchen, just hanging out with my mom, standing on a little stool, stir frying vegetables in a wok, and just helping my mom put dinner on the table. My mom was a working mom, and both my parents were gone all day as engineers, and so someone had kind of had to put food on the table. And
Yeah,
so it really
yeah.
became this necessity, or I started cooking out of necessity. But I think at a very young age, I kind of knew the power of food and its ability to connect even just my family together at home at the dinner table. And I have a whole memoir coming out this fall that will kind of explore a lot of those,
You heard it
those
here first.
themes.
You heard
And
it. You heard it
yeah,
here.
you really did. It's coming out in the fall. Keep
I
an eye
love it.
out. But I'm very excited to sort of share my story in at home in the kitchen, but also in the professional world, but also beyond the kitchen and all the little deeper layers to my story.
You know what I love the most about that story is that so many, students of the craft can resonate with that because that's how it started with them, picking up the scraps from the floor and trying to reach the counter and watching their grandmother or their
Hmm.
mother or even their father cook. I love that
Absolutely.
story. And so then you win um, Top Chef season 17, which was not just a season, it's Top Chef All Stars in Los Angeles, added pressure, right? Competing against
Yeah.
chefs, tremendous chefs who'd already proven themselves to be some of the best chefs in the world, yourself included. Can you talk a little bit about what that, I'm sure you've had this question a million times, but it's just so exciting. What was that experience like? I'd love for you to talk about the mental part, the emotional part, to compete against that level, not just against yourself, but against hand selected stars, let's just say, right?
Yeah, I think, well, I went on the show twice. So the first season was season 12 in Boston, and I had never thought I would ever do anything like, cook on a TV show. I was like, I just want to be head down in a kitchen. I was very consumed in the Michelin kitchen world. And I think doing my first Top Chef, I felt I was doing a lot of that for everyone else. There was a lot of pressure from friends and family egging me on to compete, and I was terrified. I was a painfully shy person growing up, and I sort of felt that first experience opened me up to so much more and had me feeling much more confident in myself as in all the ways. And so when it came to compete, I don't know, 5 years later on All Stars, it was a different experience in the sense of I started to do it for myself. And it was like, I didn't win the first time and I want to go back and win it this time. And so knowing I was up against some of the best chefs in America, that was extremely terrifying. You have Brian Voltaggio, you have Gregory Gourdet, these incredible, an incredible roster of chefs that I had looked up to and had, Brian was someone I had watched on his seasons of Top Chef when I was in culinary school and a young chef. And so I remember feeling quite terrified to have to compete against him because he's legendary. But it was a really proud moment, and also a moment where I got to also learn from all the others and sort of, have this takeaway of we were a very open group of chefs. I remember that season. We were all willing to teach each other new techniques and we weren't afraid to share information. And I think that's what was really beautiful about it. There was a genuine friendship amongst all of us. And at the end of the day, you're really competing against yourself on these type of shows. It's not as much, even though with the editing and all that, it feels very competitive against each other, but you're really competing against your own self every day.
I love the transparency there and the honesty, and it's such a great lesson for students, too, who challenge themselves to learn something new. Culinary school can be very intimidating to a lot of people, but this idea of kind of focusing on yourself and challenging yourself is a really, really good lesson to take away. But at the end of the day, Chef, you hold the record for the most challenge wins. So not just competing, but anyone who's watched the show knows how stressful that part of the show can be. It's extraordinary. What do you think, and I think I know the answer then, what gave you that edge and the mindset going into those challenges that you would not be defeated?
So I think you're going to hear it in the memoir for sure. But I do think, the memoir certainly explores the difference between the two seasons and how I was feeling, and also the layers to, again, like my own confidence and self-assurance of where I stood as a chef, but not even just a chef, but as a person. I think, again, I grew up so shy and I was always hiding in the kitchen and peeking. I didn't want to use my voice. Even as an Asian American in this world and a queer woman in this world, there was a part of me that was fearful in the first, season, that person you're seeing. And I think there's this sort of breakthrough that I go through on a personal level, that going on a show like that had really cracked me open to leaning deeper into my identity as a Chinese American, even in the style of cooking that you see me doing between the seasons. I think my first season, I'm cooking very much things I learned from Dominique Crenn and Ron Siegel and all of these Michelin kitchens and mentors that I had. I was, in a way, replicating a lot of their food because I wasn't in a place where I was, strong enough to have my own voice of food and identity of food. Until a little after that, you start to see somebody lean deeper into my Chinese heritage and the foods I used to eat with my grandma and dumplings I would make with her and going to dim sum every weekend with my parents and just sort of diving deeper into the cultural significance of my food. And that's sort of what you see in All Stars. And I think that's what was the shift and what really had me winning a lot of these challenges was because the food, I think, spoke for itself and its identity, and you could see that confidence break through.
Yeah, I just love every part of that. Your DNA was expressing itself, through food, things that were familiar to you. Um, it's interesting. You went to culinary school, and I think about that journey. I did a similar thing. I went to the University of Oregon, and then I did everything to fight culinary school. My parents are immigrants that came from Europe in the '60s, similar to your parents, and they were in the business. My father was a certified master pastry chef, and I did everything I could, chef, everything I could to not follow that path because I'd grown up with
Really?
it. Yeah, I wanted to be an interpreter at the UN. I was just obsessed with it. I wanted to do that. But to your point, the DNA eventually takes over, right? And you start to express yourself. And I'd love to talk about your studies at UC Irvine in cognitive science. And was that by design? I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go to culinary school. Or did something motivate you while studying that I'm gonna pursue my true passion? It's coming through.
Yeah, I think I've always been a science nerd and math nerd and strong
That's
in
good
that
in our business.
category.
That's good.
And
Yeah,
it's great
yeah,
in our business.
yeah,
And
yeah.
as I mentioned, I always knew deep down at the age of like 5, like I want to be a chef. This is what I want to do with my life. But I felt like no one believed me. They were like, "Oh, that's just a kid's,
It's a
you're
phase
just
she's going
daydreaming."
through.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's a phase, exactly. And then it became, it's just a hobby, and you shouldn't pursue that, and you're not going to enjoy cooking if you do that for a living. And I remember really having to fight for the dream. And my parents are quite, traditional immigrants from Hong Kong and coming to this, to America, wanting a better life for me. And so for them, the idea of better did not involve a kitchen. It was like, there's no way you are working in a kitchen. You need to go to school and get an education. And so that, at the time, there was extreme resistance, and as a teen, and wanting, feeling like they didn't believe in me. But I do think, looking back as an adult, certainly it was the best decision I ever made, was to go to college and get my undergrad in cognitive science. And I chose that because, it was interesting to me. It was something that I felt I think that's, to me, at the end of the day, anything I do, it always comes down to, it has to feel right. And that was one of the studies that I felt right, even though it wasn't cooking. But I was like, okay, I feel passionate enough to explore this and go and get my degree. But I knew right when I was graduating, I was going straight to culinary school. That was where my head was.
That's great.
I needed to just kind of like check that box of getting the bachelor's degree in a way to get the parental approval and family approval to continue pursuing cooking.
That story makes me feel good because it sort of validates my story in a strange kind of way. Yeah, there you go, Mom and Dad. There you go. So you graduated.
Yeah.
You graduated at the top of your class. Not surprised. I'm really curious as you look back, and if it's in the memoir, I apologize. But did you see, or do you still see, any connections between the study of how the mind works and becoming a chef? And does that translate into some of your dishes as well? Again, not to get too deep.
No, I think I've been asked this before, and I do think, the study of cognitive science it's a lot of psychology, it's a lot of biology, and you're kind of studying people and relationships and how they're all connected. And I think in kitchens, we are dealing with so many personality types, from the front of the house, the back of the house, your customer facing, your guests. And so you really do, I think for me, it was quite beneficial to kind of be able to understand how to lead in a way that, everyone has a different language that they speak and in communication style. And so I do think you see a lot of that cognitive science background in my leadership style.
No, that's great. That's great. I love that connection. This next question is about advice that you might give to aspiring culinarians or those who want to enter our industry. And I always have to have a disclaimer that everyone who hears this and hears your response needs to remember that there's a ton of work that went into this for years and years and years before you were on Top Chef and before you had incredible success in the industry. So I don't ever want to diminish the importance of that. But for young people, or anyone for that matter, who dreams of competing on a show because they watched you and they watched others in similar position as you win, or just even compete well, what advice would you give them from a pivoting perspective? Or I love the whole theme of, think about yourself. Don't do it for other people. Do it for yourself. Be honest with yourself, that kind of thing. But what advice would you give to students?
Well, I think kind of what you said, before you even go thinking of going on a TV show or competing in the media, that's a whole other beast in its own way, but you have to start I'm a big believer in starting with the basics and the foundation and building that first, and things like going to culinary school and getting yourself in kitchens and learning from the best people and finding those mentors that you want to train under that are willing to teach you. I think, like you said, there is so much hard work and drive and dedication that goes into this career. And no one you see on Top Chef or anything on television, we didn't get to where we are without that, without really building that foundation. And so I'm always telling people, before you jump all the way to 0 to 60, you got to kind of start with the training wheels and get those off first. And like you said, there's a lot of sacrifice in this industry. I've worked for 2 decades in restaurants, and I was working every weekend and night, evenings. You're sacrificing every holiday, and I've given up many friends' weddings and I missed my sister's baby shower. There were just like so many things in life that I feel I sacrificed to be in kitchens. And it was a beautiful thing in the sense of where it's led me to where I am today, to be able to go and get on a culinary show and compete. But you have to want it. You have to really, really dedicate yourself to the craft before anything else. Then, if you're ready to go on a show, I think from that point, know that it's going to be the biggest challenge of your life. I really think that Top Chef, of all the competition shows that are out there, Top Chef is a really special one in the sense that none of it is produced like it is fully this. They make you feel like it's this Hunger Games survival. You are in it. Yeah, you are in it deep. And wow. You are very unaware of its magnitude. At least for me, I was extremely unaware of what would happen after once the show actually was on television. But when you're in the competition, it is a real game, and you are competing against some of the strongest chefs, and it's all based on foundation and technique. And those are things that you cannot hide from the judges.
And great judges, right? Great judges and all eyes on you.
Amazing judge, some of the best chefs of the world are judging you and providing some incredible feedback. I think as a chef, we are constantly told how to be better and how to do it just a little bit better the next day, and that we're always trying to perfect the craft. And a competition show will really humble you in that sense. And it's going to rip apart everything you did right and wrong with your dish. Because on TV, you see 5 minutes, a judge's table on a 45-minute episode with commercial time. And in real life, that moment is at least anywhere from 2 to 4 hours of them just railing every little, dissecting your dish apart. And I think in a way that was the beauty of the show, is you take away so much and you walk away a stronger chef in person from the experience. So you really have to be ready for just being cracked open,
No,
big and wide.
That's so well said. And another thing I was thinking about while you were speaking there is that people take for granted just the physical part of it. You know, you're away from friends and family for a period of time, I imagine.
Absolutely.
You know, living in a strange place and cooking like crazy with cameras on you constantly, right?
It is pressure that I don't think anyone knows until you're actually in it. And it's pressure from not just the cooking and the physicality, but the emotional journey that you go through not being able to call home. You get stripped away of technology, and you are really deep in it. And it is, I think at some point everyone cries. It's whether it gets shown on TV or not. It is a very challenging experience on all levels. And I think for me, that was the most beautiful. It was like a really incredible experience of a lifetime, twice.
Twice, yeah.
Twice, that I will never forget.
I love that. You mentioned the word mentor a little bit earlier. Do you still enjoy or look to mentor, commies and people just coming into the craft?
Oh, people, as far as me mentoring others, or people that mentored me?
Well, let's answer both.
In general,
I love both. Yeah, I love both.
Okay, yeah, I think mentorship is so deeply important in this industry, because there are so many. I've worked for a range of leadership styles and types of chefs. I grew up in an industry where there was a lot of toxicity. Now we're in a better place. We have HR. We have a lot. It's a much better environment. But I do think in the times that I grew up in kitchens, we were not really protected, and you had to be very cautious of who you trained under, and because that is going to form, again, the foundation of who you are as a chef. And you want to make sure you find mentors that want to teach you. Sometimes in kitchens, there's an ego. There's they're like, you're just a soldier, and you do your job, and you're the commis, and you mince the shallots, and you do that all day. And that was part of what I did, that for hours, you're just brunoiing chives and then getting them chucked in the trash because they look terrible. And there's this discipline that was sort of enforced. But I think mentorship, finding people that respect you and therefore you respect them back, it's so deeply important. And so for me, I love taking on any chef that's eager, whether you're younger or commis, or whether you're, Brian Voltaggio and you're an established chef. I love being able to just exchange information, because I think this industry, you never stop learning. Yeah. Food is endless, and it's the most beautiful thing about our industry. I can go travel the world and still learn something and eat something I've never eaten before, and want to go home and try to cook it. And so I think it is this endless exchange of knowledge and information from anyone that's willing to offer it. And so that is always important, to find those people and surround yourself with them.
That's a beautiful response. And speaking of beautiful, let's talk a little bit about the book. And you're probably going to get emotional here. I'm going to quote Andrew Zimmern. It's just an amazing statement that he made. And I quote,
"That's my favorite.
To honor who we are as chefs is hard enough. To do so unapologetically, deliciously, and with style is even more difficult. To do all that and inspire others to cook, to create food so irresistible that I am insistent that you buy this book that my friend made for you. Love that. Well, that is pure magic. And magic is indeed what's inside these covers. Melissa King is a phenomenal talent, a superb cook, and in every sense of the word. And her recipes, several of which I've had the pleasure of eating, are incurably craveable and craveable. You will be cooking out of this book for years and years and wowing whoever is at your table. What an absolutely beautiful thing for him to say. And he's been around, right? he talks to everyone. And tell us a little bit. And I've adored Marcus Samuelsson for years, by the way, and his comments on the inside page of the book, right below Andrew, also just so beautiful. What inspired you to write this book, and why now? Why was this the right time to write this book?
It's that childhood dream. I've always wanted to be a chef. I've always wanted to have my own cookbook and have the restaurant. And, you create these goals for yourself in life. And this was one that really started at an early age. And to be at a point of my career where I get to sort of take everything out of my brain and put it onto a piece of paper, and you get a little glimpse of what's going on in my head. And I am so deeply proud of this book. I am proud of every recipe that I've decided to put in there. It was quite a process of, taking even like 200 recipes in my head and narrowing it down to 120. It was like choosing your children and having to cherry pick. But for me, I felt it was important to put a book out there that represents all of me. And this one, I feel, does. I never dreamt there would be a day where there would be my cookbook would have Shanghainese lion head meatballs and a black chicken with ginseng soup, and just dishes that I grew up with and in a way was sort of embarrassed about, or there was a bit of like embarrassment as a child, having like the stinky lunchbox and eating foods that I kept so separate at home. I really believe as a Chinese American, I always felt I was not Chinese enough if I was in Asia, and I'm not American enough when I'm in America. So there was this duality that I was fighting with, but I think this book marries all of that so beautifully. And you have little excerpts as well throughout the recipes that kind of give you a little backstory of the inspiration behind each dish. But I hope the memoir kind of serves as a bigger, broader, dive into the heart of it all. And
you know what I love about that. And first of all, it's okay to have a stinky lunchbox. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I had the best lunchbox as a kid.
You had the best lunchbox,
but I didn't realize that.
And you think back on it, I had a messy lunchbox, being the son of a pastry chef. Kids that were around the table growing up in Chicago, they had cookies and donuts and all kinds of stuff. I had Black Forest tort and Linzer tort, and it was confusing, right? And liverwurst on rye bread with onions, but. And I wasn't going to go down all that. I love this book so much. Page 180, crispy salmon with summer corn and chanterelle. So what I love about the book is that it looks like you can do it, like you can replicate it.
Absolutely.
And was that by design? Because oftentimes these beautiful books, like I can't cook that, but I
absolutely did that by design, because for me, I knew this book, I wanted to be able to bring my food to everyone and not have it be too chefy or too much for the professional world. I think that's, again, the beauty of food is it's a connector. It's a connecting piece. And I thought about all the dishes I make for my own friends and family when they just come over to the house for dinner. And so you have like the Mama Mel's meatballs, which are just ricotta meatballs with a lot of capers. And it's like a homey dish that I make when I'm entertaining. And the crispy salmon, I kept thinking, how can a lot of people make salmon, but they don't always make it, restaurant quality with that glassy skin.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to teach basic foundational techniques that I would learn in culinary school, even like a brown butter sauce. There's a flounder with the yuzu brown butter, but there's a lot of swap ups and level ups pending people's cooking level. And I was very mindful of that when I wrote this. So if you don't have access to Japanese yuzu, you can certainly use lemon for your brown butter caper sauce.
Exactly.
But I wanted to kind of include a lot of those basic techniques that I learned in culinary school and throughout my career, and just hopefully offer it to the home cook in a way that is presented in a very beautiful book, because a part of me I can't make an ugly book. I was like, I styled every dish in here was styled by me. I obsessed over, every grain of salt, every drip of oil. My hands were in there. And I think that's also why I'm so deeply proud of it.
It's so great. And it needs to be beat up.
So much attention to detail.
It needs to be on the counter, right? And spill on it.
Yeah.
Page 164.
That's why you buy two books. You have the one that's like, that's what I do. I always have my kitchen book and I have the shelf book.
Well, I sent him, I have 4 kids, and one of my son-in-laws is a big fisherman. And we've had arguments about fish collar. And so I took a snapshot of
What kind of arguments? It's the best. It's the best
to either make it the best or throw it away when you're cleaning the fish, right?
Don't throw it away.
Bad arguments, right? So this grilled fish collar you have here is it's absolutely beautiful. And who knew, right? Who knew that can be such a
that
beautiful
recipe
dish.
Thank you. And that recipe, I specifically, if you read the fine print, there's a swap. You can use a fillet of salmon, no problem, for that recipe.
Yeah.
And it's just teaching people how to miso marinate any type of fish. You can do halibut fillets. But of course, my personal favorite is the collars, because I was a butcher for many years in my career. And I think those were the parts I would save for staff meal. And I would oftentimes collect the collars after butchering, all of these yellowtail tunas or even just salmons, and taking the collars and throwing them on the grill. And so that California ethos lives throughout this book of just sustainability, utilizing everything, and trying to go, no waste where possible. There's even a soup recipe in the back, and I joke that it's a compost soup, but it's called the weekend broth.
Okay. That's okay. That's a great lesson for students,
because that's what it really is. It's literally all the trim that you would typically throw in your compost or in the trash, which we don't love, but taking mushroom stems and onion scraps and the butt ends of your carrots, the bones of your fish, or even your roast chicken, and creating a weekend broth at the end of your work week. And just every week it's slightly different because of all the different trim that you've acquired throughout the days. So I really wanted to include that.
I was just going to ask the question, because the subtitle is so important, right? Recipes from my California Chinese kitchen. And so you're blending, like we said earlier, your heritage with California sensibility and your classical training.
Absolutely.
Which is so important. So I think you've answered this, but if what's your elevator speech in terms of how you would describe your culinary point of view or your food point of view? How do these influences all come together? Is it organic, or is it really kind of by design?
Question. For sure it's organic. It's really based off of, for instance, my elevator pitch for the book is that it's recipes from my California Chinese kitchen. You'll see a lot of elements of fusion and dishes from my childhood as a Shanghainese Cantonese American. So home-style dishes I would make with my mom and my grandmas. But also some elements and techniques that I picked up through Michelin kitchens. And even part of like, I grew up in Los Angeles, so you'll see a little bit of that Mexican influence throughout the cooking, throughout the recipes as well. I also trained in rustic Italian, so there's a little bit of that. And so it does come together quite beautifully in this rather organic book that sort of tells the story of my life through food.
That's a good answer off the cuff there. That's a really, really.
And the kitchens I've been in, you really
Yeah.
feel that, I think, as you read it.
I love that. I love that. And speaking of your, I was really excited when I started really digging into, some of the people you've worked with. And years and years and years ago, I was involved with Le Cordon Bleu, and we had a campus in San Francisco called the California Culinary Academy, which had been there for a long time. Ron Siegel, did some things there, but you worked with him, and you've cooked for Oprah and Al Gore, and more than anything, I said at the beginning of the show before we got started, my wife and I have been in love with Dominique Crenn for a long, long time, and so we went over Christmas, and we were their final service before their holiday break. So everyone was in a really good mood and probably more animated than normal. And one of the things that was really beautiful is whether the poem was written for us specifically or it goes to everyone, we believe that the poem was written for us. So before any food came, there was a little poem that Dominique had written and provided to the guests. And so we read it a few times, sort of, feeling like we were there on the coast of France when, she was, creating this mussel dish or this oyster dish, and it was really, really beautiful. And I'd love to ask two questions. What's it like to work in that kind of high pressure kitchen of excellence, I'll say? And you worked for over 2 years with Dominique Crenn, and I'd love to just hear a little bit more, just for myself, of what that was like.
Yeah. Any sort of high-pressured Michelin kitchen, it is not easy. There is a lot of attention to detail, the strive for excellence and perfection, and there's a standard. And so I think for Dominique, she was an incredible person that came into my life, or I came into her kitchens and was able to get that opportunity, first of all, as a woman in a kitchen. I had never seen another woman in that status. She was really one of the first female women executive chefs that were available to me to even work for. And I remember feeling excited, like I need to work for her. Like I cannot wait to just, there was this sort of, when we go back to mentorship, that was something that was very important to me. And she gave me that opportunity to come into her kitchen and train my way up with her. And so I'm forever grateful for that. And back to the excellence, she's extremely, disciplined in her standards. And that was something I learned along the way. And also she's a dreamer. She's a big dreamer, the poems, and she thinks outside of the box. And I was a young chef back in those days, but to feel that energy and to learn and adapt some of that behavior and way of thinking of food was extremely memorable.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story. Now, coming back to your career, which is so multifaceted and exciting, you're now the host of, everything from the trailer to the camera work on this show is insane. National Geographic's Tasting Wild.
It is.
And I was telling you earlier that, having, spent quite a few years in Oregon, and my older daughters live in Oregon. Eastern Oregon is beautiful, and I watched this episode of you rock climbing, and it's just fascinating. What's it like, chef, to be on the other side? You're judging and you're hosting, and you're shifting your perspective in a different kind of way. You're not competing, you're experiencing, and you're sharing that with us. The other thing I wanted to mention too, kind of whether it's out in the wilderness or through your book, your food is so clean. And I love
Thank
that. And I love that word. And I love, it's just clean, right? Whether the turkey dish or the dumplings you mentioned earlier, it's just really, really clean. And
Thank you.
I just had to say that. But the question is really, what's it like being on the other side, right?
Yeah, I think I had always thought that cooking would lead me to just a restaurant and that was the end all be all. And it's like, okay, now I can deem myself successful. But I think with something like Top Chef and that whole experience and everything beyond that has led me to be able to continue creating food in a way that is an experience, as you've mentioned. Like I get to go to these places. Like I was cooking on a volcano in Hawaii, and then there's the mountain the mountain climbing in Oregon, and I was kayaking in a glacier and trying to fish for my own fish and foraging those ingredients. Which I love foraging. I think that's maybe a Californian thing as well. But I think there was so much beauty in being able to experience food in a different way.
Yeah.
That's not just singular and not
and
just
a different environment
in a kitchen
too.
creating it. Yeah. Exactly, a different environment and finding inspiration through that. I think as chefs, I find inspiration in everything from music to art and nature. And so I think Tasting Wild really tapped into that deeper part of exploring my surroundings and opening my senses to what's around me. And I was very proud of the dishes I created on that show. We did not program any of it. It was very much like, go out there in the world and let's see what Melissa creates. And so
and that's what makes it
so beautifully
exciting.
shot.
Yeah, beautifully,
exactly.
Beautifully
It
shot.
was
The trailer says your inspiration comes from nature. Beautiful, right? Right. Let's shift a little bit. If this is really important to me too. It's inspiring to me, and I know it'll be inspiring to our students and to my wife, how you intentionally use your platform, Chef, and your voice to work with nonprofits, the Human Rights Campaign, World Central Kitchen. We do some work with them as well. It's amazing. No Kid Hungry. Why this? I just think it's such an important topic. Why is advocacy work so important to you and to us? And how do you think using your platform and success can create change?
Absolutely. I think it all begins with that. I think the youth in particular is very important to me. I think when I was young, I never saw anyone that looked like me or, was cooking that was gay and Asian. And, it was there was a very minimal amount of representation when I was younger. And so when I look back on all that, I want to champion for that as much as possible. I want there to be more access for people and even food access. If we just talk about No Kid Hungry and World Central Kitchen and the work that they do, I'm a firm believer that everyone deserves access to food. But knowing that I today have a platform that I have, it is so deeply important to me to continue to leverage that for the community, because that is the only way to make change. We have to be loud. We have to speak up for things that are important to us. So I'm always kind of rooting that into the things that I create.
That's such a. I was going
whenever
to ask,
possible.
I was actually going to ask you for advice for young culinarians in finding their voice, not necessarily their skills, but their voice. And I think you just beautifully answered that. I have to mention to our listeners that you've modeled for Levi, starting a Gap global campaign. You introduced the first Korean American Muppet on Sesame Street. That's a career right there. That's absolutely amazing for someone who grew up with Sesame Street. You were Grand Marshal for San Francisco Pride. You've talked a little bit about that memoir that's coming up, but I'm curious, what's next? What dreams are you having today?
So many.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
There's not enough
right?
time to do them all, but I think that is the beauty of life is you don't have to limit yourself to one thing. And that's what I learned through the journey of my life. And you'll explore that in the memoir. And the memoir is the thing that is next. But beyond that, I would always love to have a restaurant. That is something that still is one of the many dreams that I have. I would love to have a nonprofit someday of my own. I think do not limit yourself and just continue to dream big because it is out there. It is attainable. You just have to want it enough to make it happen.
I love that.
But anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Mm-hmm. Chef, before I let you go, the name of the show is The Ultimate Dish. This has been just a lovely, lovely hour with you. But before I let you slip away, in your mind, what is the ultimate dish? Could be a memory, could be a specific dish that your mother and you made, anything.
My ultimate dish is quite simple. I love just a whole flatfish grilled, a little olive oil and sea salt, just simple. Wood fire. I love wood fire cooking. Maybe there's a side of crusty sourdough bread, perfect heirloom tomatoes, and that nice olive oil and flaky sea salt. That is my perfect meal. And a bowl of steamed rice.
Okay.
And I'll be happy.
And being that you're sommelier, what are we opening with this?
Oh, let's see here. Maybe I love a dry Alsatian Riesling. I just love that minerality, or even a Chablis would be quite lovely.
I love it. I'm going to go with the Riesling. I love this. I love
right?
this.
I love the high acid.
Yeah. Chef, thank you so much. I was so nervous about our show today, but you calmed me. Your words are gorgeous, and so are you. And thank you very, very much. We appreciate you. Dream big.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Dream big, everyone.
Dream big. Dream big.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast to find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. And if you can, please leave us a rating on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to support our show. This helps us reach more aspiring individuals ready to take the next step toward their dream careers. Thanks for listening.